Alright, so I want to sort of do a brain dump of just various ideas I have for solving large cubes. A lot of these are going to be pretty standard stuff if you've seen my videos, but there's also some new ideas that I just wanted to sort of get on video. The first thing I want to show is just the Niklas method. So, if you may know, there's like these 8-move commutators, and all they do is move a couple pieces around. So it's like the standard, like on 3x3, it's the Niklas. So that's what I call them. But you can also use those for edges, like this. So that's 3 edges, like that. Or any centers. So that's actually 3 centers, this one, and like one over here. And the interesting thing is that you can actually, like right now I'm just moving from the front to the top, but you can move in any direction. So suppose you do this, and then that, and then undo that, and undo this. So that actually is a 3 cycle from the front, the top, and the back. Or if you do like left twice, right, and undo it, then that takes one from the bottom up and puts that on the front. So the advanced Niklas method, the idea is that all you're doing is solving pieces. Oh, also block commutators. So you're solving pieces just one center at a time. There's nothing special. The idea of a block commutator is that you're moving a bunch of pieces at once. So like let's say you do this, these two, and these two. So that's actually a 2x2 block that you've moved. So it's a cycle of 2x2 blocks. Or you could do like this, and then maybe like these. And so you've actually moved a line of pieces now. So it's these three, and then like 3 in this area. So you want to do that a lot when you can, because that's safe moves. But so the idea of the Niklas method is that you just want to solve one center at a time in whatever order you feel like, but make sure to do it so that ideally you don't waste moves, but you also want to solve other pieces at the same time if you can. So what does that mean? So let's say I'm going to solve these 3 at once. I can actually do that because this whole row is empty. So I'm going to solve these 3 at once, which is a block commutator. But I notice that it's yellow, yellow, and green. So these are on green, which means that I can push these 3 pieces to green, yellow on the bottom, or blue on the back. So I'm going to push them to yellow. So I bring these 3 up, and since they're in a line, I can do this. Then I do a 90-degree turn, and I want to bring these to the bottom, to yellow, so I do double turn. Then I undo it, and now these 3 pieces have moved to the bottom. So again, like this one, I'm just going to solve this by itself, but this goes to yellow, so I see that, and I do a double turn to bring it to the bottom. And this one goes to orange. I could look around, and maybe there's something better, but orange isn't one of the centers I can do. So I'll just do whatever I feel like, any turn. And again here, I could do blue, just an example. So I'm pushing this to blue, and then I want anything on the blue as the third piece of the commutator. So I push this up, down, down, up. And so that actually solved a blue piece here. And so you just keep doing that until you clear this center, move to the next one, move to the next one, move to the next one. I'll just finish the white. And here, this is interesting. So you can't actually do this entire block because these 2 can't be done at the same time. It's just something you learn as you go. But we can do these top 2. So this is orange and yellow. Orange doesn't matter. Yellow we can do double turn. I mean, actually orange doesn't matter because now we're on red. So orange is black. Orange is the back, yellow is the bottom. So we do this, move over, and remember we have orange, yellow. So orange, yellow. Undo it, and now we've solved a yellow piece, and we solve an orange piece. So it's that kind of idea, and trying to do as many as you can. So I mean, you don't want to waste too much time looking, but like here, we have a yellow and a blue, so we'll just do that. Yellow, blue. And as you get better at this, it gets easier. The reason I'm showing this is because this is a lot easier than the normal method I use, but it's not that bad. Like I did a 7x7 recently, and I got about the same time with my actual method as with, actually was it a 7? No, it was a 9x9. I did a 9x9 with this method and with the full method, and I got about the same time. So it's not as bad as it seems, especially with the optimizations, doing blocks, doing other things like that, and it's really simple. So if you just want to learn how to solve big cubes on the computer, this is like really not bad. And I've done some reasonably big stuff with this. Here's another fun one. So you're solving something from 180 degrees away. So this is going to go here, which is going to go to red. Now red's on the correct axis here, but if I was on like green, then I couldn't solve this red piece. So I really want to be on orange or red, and you can like do rotations and stuff to make that happen. But we just set up like that, do red, and undo it. And one special thing there to notice is that you're not necessarily going to actually solve the piece, but it doesn't really cost you any time or moves to do it this way. So like, if we do this, like whether move up or down or twice, it doesn't cost you any moves. It's still one move each way. So you might as well just do it, and on average, you'll save pieces later. So that's the advanced Niklas method. All you do is just, you do that, and then you're probably going to want to solve yellow next so that everything else is in this ring. Then you just pick, solve orange, solve blue, solve red, whatever. And it's decent. It's pretty decent. So now I'm going to show off the regular method. I'm going to use the regular ISO. So I have like different versions that scramble only edges or only corners. So here's the regular version. This actually has an even and an odd variant. So here's like an 8x8 that's like, it's a pretty small cube. Normally reduction would be faster than this method, but I'm just going to solve it this way just to show you, because it's not that long, compared to the bigger cubes. So first, edges. Basically, you just move pieces in the M layer, and you find all the parts of this edge. So I'm picking white, blue. So you just find all the white blues. And there's ways to do this more efficiently. You can watch what I do, or what Super Ben do. So I solve white, blue, I put it on the left, and I'm going to solve another one. It's usually another white. I like to do the whites first. 4 white, 4 yellow, and then the middle ones. So here's white, green, and you can put it in any order. Like here I have white up, you could have white down, whatever you want. Just remember what you're doing so you don't put things in the wrong way. Oops. So here's that. Put it on the left. And I notice there's already one here. I don't have to look, but it can help. Like if you notice something, if you notice there's a bunch of pieces of one color or one color pair, you might as well just build those. So I solve 3 on the left and then stop. So I have this upper layer free still. Then I do white, red. Put that on the right now, and I move the left so it was like this. This one's free, the rest are not. So I move the left down so that now this is free and I can move to the right. And then I do the 4 yellows. That's that, white, blue. And so the idea is that even so far, even all the stuff you've done so far, you still have the upper layer and the M slice completely free. So none of this is, the only hard part here is finding pieces. But the actual moves you're doing are the same. So the 8th one is the final one of this type. And now you can't you can't take pieces in from the top left and top right, but you can still do double turns. And also one thing is you might have a piece here, so like if you have a piece you need here, you can just take a piece out and insert it like in reduction. So then I store that in the right, and now just the M layer. So then I solve one edge first, then the second edge. And so usually what I do is so I was going to solve this, the green-orange, but let's solve the blue-orange. So if I see a flipped edge, I'm going to take that down, then flip this edge and put it back up. I flip this edge with 5 move alg. You could use the 7-1 that people do on the real cube, but I'll do that. So this is now blue up, orange down. What I want to do is I can do only a U2. That's it. So I want to find pieces that look correct. So I've got here 2. So the alg is U2, slice move, U2, slice move back. So a U2, and then I bring this up, U2, bring it down. So now I've grabbed those 2. And then this one also I can do. If you can't do it, you want to, if these are the wrong direction, then you want to flip this one. And since you only have 3 edges, you can do this in 4 moves. 1, 2, 3, 4, like that. So I'm just going to insert this one. And now you have only 2 edges left. And the idea is, typically, like, there's a bunch of ways to do this, and I had a really clever way to do this for huge cubes that I don't remember, but the general idea is you just want to like pick an edge that is going to stay where it is, and then insert all the edges from the other one that look like they can be inserted. So like if it's 180 degrees away, you can insert it basically. So like we've got green up here, and so I can't insert this green up because it's directly like what I want to do is like basically M prime flip this edge M. So I can insert this one, so I do that. Flip this edge, do that. Then I can insert both of these at the same time. No parity. Or, so you can't tell whole edge parity at this point, but we're going to solve 3x3 like really soon. But suppose you didn't have, suppose you had like some weird parity. Let me just, that's fine. So suppose you have some weird parity, you solved your edge, and it's like this. So don't do the normal parity out, because you have these centers all unsolved, which means you can actually save moves. The parity alg I usually do is, so there's the basic one, which is R2, U2, R, U2, R2. So that does fix parity. And you just do it on all the layers that are affected. So that does fix parity, and then there's a 3 cycle. But I use one that's sort of that plus a 3 cycle together. So it's R2, U2, R prime, U2, R prime. That doesn't quite solve it, but now you just have to flip this edge. So you flip that edge and then finish. And that is your parity alg. And then I do 3x3 after edges. So with this puzzle, this is an even cube, which are way easier. I'll go over odd cubes after this. But even cubes are way easier, so you don't have to worry about the centers here. And then no parity here, which is good. But I did mess up the J-perm, which is not good. Now, if you did have parity here, you could again do the normal thing, but you could also do my alg. But I guess I'd recommend doing just R2, U2, R, U2, R2. So there is a multi-slice option on this sim. Not all sims have this. You could just do the turns one by one, but this one is multi-slice, so caps lock toggles it. And so multi-slice just means that when you turn a middle layer, it'll do a whole bunch at once. So right, left. So this one is just R2, U2, R2, but I mean R or R prime, but only the slice, so you undo the right layer, and then U2, R2. So that does this weird 4 cycle. And so if you actually had parity, then now this would be a 3 cycle, which you can fix with a commutator. So that would be like this. Oh yeah, PLL parity. So there's a bunch of ways to do this, but R2, B2, U2, R2 slice, U2, B2, R2 is like the normal alg. It still works on here, it's not that long. But yeah, so here is parity, R2, U2, R, and fix the right layer, U2, R2, and then it's a 3 cycle. So this, here, so like that. Flip this edge, and then unflip the edge. Alright, so now we got the centers. So this is called clearing. So we're going to solve white first. I always do that. You don't have to do that, but I always do that. Makes it easier to have a fixed order. So I'm going to do white. This is called clearing. The idea is that I want to solve as many pieces as possible with as few moves as possible. So I'm going to do it basically row by row. So I move. So there's like, for each row, there's like 4 places that I want to solve. So either a piece like here, or here, or here, or here. So I move a piece out of the way if it's in this column. Move the column down, and then rotate through, and just, if I see any white pieces here, I move them to where they should be. And so that often solves a bunch of them in, about 1 move each, which is pretty good. So I just do the same for every column. And it's okay if you make a mistake, you just undo it. And if you have 2 pieces that fit in the same area and you waste moves, like, that's alright. It's better to waste a couple moves than try to figure stuff out. So like this one, if I do this move, it's not actually, you see there's one here already? If I do this move, it's not actually going to solve a piece, but it's better to just, like, you can remember on a small cube, you can remember sometimes and you can know not to do this, but on a really big cube, like, don't worry about it, just, use whatever moves, solve the pieces you see, and if you waste moves, it's better than having to think and count and stuff. Clearing, clearing, clearing. So now we've solved a whole bunch of these, and now don't mind the mess. These are all just 1 move away, basically. But don't worry about this. You're going to solve the centers on this ring now. So that's with a 4-move commutator. So it's, here, I'll show you on a fresh one. So the 4-move commutator is like this. And that affects actually all 6 centers. So you don't want to do this normally, but like the way you set this up, you have the freedom because you're only worried about 1 center. So it's just like R prime, U prime, R, U, basically. And how do you know if that's going to actually solve it? So you can rotate over. So I would like rotate, and so you can see like here's a white one. When I rotate, there's still a white piece here. This is a white one. When I rotate, there's no white piece here. So I can solve this one, but not this one. So like I know I can solve these outer 2. So I can do that. You solve as many as you can, then rotate. And now I can solve this one. And so there's up to 4 rotations, so if you just rotate up to 4 times, you'll be able to solve everything. And you can get really fast at like seeing a bunch of pieces at once by just a quick flick like that. So I see these 2. And this one, like, it's a small cube, so you can already see stuff without actually doing the rotation. But yeah, so rotate, this piece is empty, so I can solve it. So once you've cleared out the pieces from the ring, then you just want to bring the other center over. So you want the centers to be adjacent. Now the way you do this is pretty simple. Multi-slice again. Basically it's like R U2 R prime, L prime U2 L. And that swaps 2 centers. It does a bunch of stuff on the edges, but the cool thing is you can just undo it. But the cool, so you've got white and yellow right next to each other, which is pretty cool. And if you didn't have multi-slice, you would do just everything up to, but not including the outer one, because that just wastes a slice move. So, you can do this with whatever layers you want, basically. And if you just don't do it with the outer one, then it only does the center and these two edges, this one and this one. So, do that. Now the two centers are next to each other. And it's the same idea. You just find what you can solve. Here it's a block, so these two are both solvable, so you can do it like that. So that's the same idea as like this. Like it works just like a Niklas, where you can do a block of things at once. So you just solve what you can. And then, oh, look at that, we still got some. Here they are. And then finally, when you're done, you just undo the center swap. So that's the first center. Oh, it looks like we made a mistake here. That shouldn't happen, but it can happen. You just want to make sure to fix these, fix this whole chunk before you swap it back. But these ones can still be wrong because we'll fix them later. So now, for the second center, we do sort of a modified version of the clearing. We're still going to do like two steps, like clearing and then commutators. So for this clearing, we still move stuff out of the way, but now it's R, U2, R prime, and then we undo that for each column. So we find the pieces in this layer, and we've solved, look at that, we've solved the whole layer. So we put it back, clear this layer out, or at least just move the pieces out of the way. Like if there's two pieces, like you only have to move one of them out of the way to know that that's enough. Because there's still one left. Like imagine there's like 4 places each center could be. In like each of these is like there's 4 locations. And as long as one of them away from this middle is yellow, then you could have a yellow to bring in here. So anyway, so you bring this one down, find all the pieces, and bring it up. And with this simulator, since everything's like exact 90-degree rotations, it's really easy to keep track, but it might be a little harder to keep track of what column you're on a different cube, where you have to like rotate, like drag it around. That's kind of why I made this one, to be like really like smooth and fast and easy to have a mental conception of, because you don't waste time like fighting with the display. Okay, so we actually solved a whole bunch of these. Now is the point where you want to fix the edges. And then we center swap this down. And so what we're going to do is, if you remember this one, the form move, so now it's R2, U prime, R2, U. Wow, look at that. So it's kind of complicated, the effect, but the important part is that you are solving one piece to, you have like this layer, it doesn't affect the top and bottom, and you have this layer and you're solving one piece into it. So you just R2, you do an R2 basically, bring it over, do an R2 to bring it back, and then undo. Or like if we hold it like this, it's like R2, U prime, R2, U. So same idea here. We're not going to affect the top or the bottom. The bottom's white, so we don't want to affect that. So we rotate over to find a place we can put it. We can put both these here at once. So it's R2, U prime, R2, U. Same. So we're going to solve everything in this one and the opposite one. Then we do a center swap. We're going to have to do a center swap for the last two. So we center swap this one down. Solve all the pieces in it. Make sure to bring this one back to the correct orientation, which is like this. And then swap it back. And the same thing for the opposite. So like that. And then swap it back. And then finally, you swap this one back. So that's the first two centers. And then for the third center, which I always do orange, but you can do whatever, there's another clearing method. So now there's, now instead of having like 4 locations, we're just going to use 2. So we're going to use the blue and the green as like storage places. So you clear stuff out of the blue, you move a layer over, then you do a double rotation and bring stuff back from the green and rotate back. So here we don't have to move everything away. You move a layer over, rotate, move these 2 in, rotate back, and solve. And I'll do a write-up of this, but I just wanted to like have a video of explaining it. Okay, then solve or fix those things you messed up. And then it's the same thing. It's the R2U prime R2U commutator. And just remember, you rotate to find if there's room to place it. So you do that one, and then you do the opposite one, green. Okay. You can these commutators sometimes move stuff around semi-randomly, so you might as well just like check back and make sure that sometimes you'll still have some here that when you go back, then you can solve it again immediately. And so now you want to do this one, the center. So it's another center swap. So just to get them next to each other, and then you can do the same commutators that you've been doing. And as I said, like this stuff does move centers around. Whoops, I messed up there. Anyway, it does move stuff around, so like some stuff will end up here. That's fine. You just rotate over and solve it. So we can rotate this back, but normally we wouldn't. But I just want to sort of show you. So we have 3 centers solved, and so we're going to do the last 3. And I have a special method for this. Basically, so I'm going to solve blue. And for this method, I want blue to be on top. So I actually do want it swapped like this. So the idea is to get the blue out of this one, out of the front and back centers. So every column, from right to left, usually, we're going to basically put the blues on the back, then take a column down from the top, and then put the blues into the correct column. So I'm going to start on this one. I start by just moving them to the back. Take one down, which is, I'm going to do RU to R prime, because I don't want to mess with the bottom. Then I do a rotation, and bring stuff in, and then fix it. So I haven't solved this whole thing, but that's okay. Now we rotate the top, and then we take the same column, like still the first column, but from a different rotation of the top. So we take that. We can solve this one now. And then we can now bring this one to the back. So every time you do that, you can bring stuff to the back so that then it can be moved to the front into the correct place. So here, we've got these 2, and now we've actually finished this column. So there's no blues on the front or the back. So now the second column, we do that. We do that, and look, the back's free, the front's free, and so now we're good. So third column. And remember that there's 4 rotations the top can be in, so you might have to try up to all 4. And especially in the second half of this center, you probably will have to try all 4 most of the time. Also, if there's like only a couple that need the blue, you might as well just do those, and often it'll just be enough. But basically, there's no point in, if you see stuff on the back, like, if you see a whole bunch of stuff on the back and almost no places for it to go, there's no point in moving everything over, because there's nowhere for it to go. So, you know, there's nowhere for it to go on the top, basically. So, like, let's do one here. So, like, we could only use centers if they're in the first, second, or fourth. So there's no point, like, clicking around on these other ones. And remember, every time you do it, you want to clear everything you can off of that layer, because if it's on the back, you can solve it. If it's on the front, you can't solve it. So we move that, and then, so that's that second to last column. Everything's on the back already here. Okay, that's the last column. So now actually all the blue is on top. Great. So fix the horizontal layers and then swap the centers back. And then the last two centers is, again, something pretty special. So basically, it's the same kind of idea, but a little different. So you're going to go column by column. So you move a column down, do rotation, double, and then basically move all the wrong colors. Do a horizontal double slice for all the wrong colors. So like here's only one. Do a slice, rotate back, and then now you're going to do RUR prime. So basically you're just looking at a different version of this column. There's four rotations. So RUR prime, you look at a different version. And if that color is correct, then you move it back to the back. So you had a red here. Red is bad, but you want a green. So you found a green, move it back. And then when you're done, when you've solved all those, so you did bring a green back to this area. Once you've solved all those, then you bring the layer up and move to the next layer. So here you've got these middle two. Those are bad, right? Green, green, bad. Move those over. RUR prime. Still bad. These are good now. So you've solved that area. Next one. So we've got these three. Do like that, and you notice this one's good. These are still bad, but this one's good, so you can solve that one. And then try a different rotation. These are good. Next one. These three. That's good. That's good. Oh, look at that. So we've actually tried all four. So when you do the RUR prime thing 3 times, that's it. You've tried all the possibilities, which means that the green we want is actually already on the back. That's annoying, right? So the best way I've found to do this is you solve it, RU2R prime, right? Then you bring it back, RU2R prime, and finally you can solve it. And so that sounds like a lot of work, but it can be done pretty efficiently if there's a whole bunch of them. It's really not that bad. I'll talk about a different idea I had later. So, okay, just go through every column, solve things that are solved, and finally, last column, and we're done. And that's the method. So, yeah, so let's go into the odd variant. So, like, the even cubes, like 8x8, are the easiest. Now, if you have a 7x7, it's a bit different. I'll go a little faster, but just sort of to go through and explain, like, what is different. Because I think everyone who does these will agree that odd cubes are more difficult, and part of that's because, like, some of the nice tricks that we do cannot actually be used on even cubes at all, and some kind of work but kind of don't. So edges is pretty much the same, which is good, because edges are annoying. Edges are like the hardest part on a normal cube, and they're still pretty hard here, but they're not as bad comparatively, because the thing is that the bigger cube that you solve, the more the centers matter. And this method is really, really good at the centers. Like, really efficient and really decreases the amount of things you have to look for. This method's not that great for edges, but it doesn't matter that much. there's still a lot of like finding pieces and stuff. So here we go. That's the 9th edge, last 3. And notice that if you've got an odd edge, the middle ones can't move. I mean, they can, but like essentially the middle one is the most important piece. So like, I always want to, I'm not going to like mess around with it. I just want to match up green, orange. Orange on top. So it's the same thing. Like if you find a piece, you just insert it. Can't find any, flip it, and insert the last 2. And then here, I just want to bring, we've got orange blue, I just want to bring the orange blue down. And these are across from each other, so I can only do one at a time. So I do that, and I can bring this one down. And then I can flip these. And here, no parity. And now we're going to solve the 3x3. Normal stuff, except we just have to keep track of the centers and make sure that we're matching up with the fixed centers. Otherwise, we're going to get PLL parity. Or we're going to have to just like solve the centers later, you know, do some annoying stuff. Okay, so we got 3x3. And then clearing is the same for the first center. So I'll just zip through that. Actually, yeah, the first center is pretty much identical. And it's a really, really small cube, so I can just, I don't have to like rotate to check, I can just like look myself. Aha, okay, so now we're gonna swap centers. That is a bit different. So on an even cube, if you swap centers, you could just do like that, RU to R prime, L prime, U to L. For an odd cube, doesn't quite work. Because if you do that, you'll get something like this. So the middle layer will not be swapped. So what I do is U, M prime, U prime, M, which is basically means that when you undo it, it's kind of like a sexy move. So as long as you do it the same way every time, it's fine. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to swap it like this. U, M prime, U prime, M. And then we just go here and use commutators to solve everything into white. Alright, so line these back up, make sure these lined up, and swap them back. We've messed up here, but that's okay. I'm just going to use a Niklas here, but normally that wouldn't happen. And then clearing for the second center is also pretty much the same, except for the middle column. So the middle column, you can't do M prime U to M. That won't actually bring anything down. You just do the same kind of like U, M prime, U prime, M. And remember, the middle center is going to stay there, so don't bother. I mean, you're not going to be able to find anything anyway, but like, don't worry about it, you know. This is as good as you can get, these 4. And then you do that. Fourth one, just remember to realign everything. So like, you're actually solving columns and not like half the columns and then rotate 90 degrees and solve the next half, if that makes any sense. So okay, then we solve the edges, bring it down. And this kind of thing, it messes up the middle edges a bit, and you just have to like get used to it. Now most of these can be solved. So like, most of these you can just do the same thing. But, whoops. But some of them, oh dear. Okay, wait. So the ones on the horizontally middle layer, you cannot do R2U prime R2U. Because here's what's going to happen. If you try to do that, like suppose there's one here. If you try to do R2U prime R2U, R2 will move it back, but then U prime will actually move it into the center. Because this is the middle, so it'll move it out of the way. So now when you do R2 again, you don't get the piece you're expecting, right? So you can solve this one on the bottom, but to solve the one here, you have to rotate by 90 degrees. So just like keep that in mind. Remember to realign everything. But so now we saw the front and the back. We're going to take this one down and just, sort of remember like what you're looking at so that you can fix the alignment later. So we do that one, do this one, and then realign this so that when we swap this one back, things get solved again. See, we messed up here. That's not great. I don't really know what I did. Not what you want to happen. I think that's correct. Okay, so we've done the front, back, top. We're going to do this one over here, the left. So swap it, and if it helps, then you can rotate, but you don't need to. U M prime, U prime M. We solve these directly. And again, like this is why everyone considers the odd cubes to be harder, because the center swap is the big thing. You do center swaps, and then finally you finish the center. The middle, you're not going to do the middle one because it's up here, but you solve that, and then center swap back, and that's the second center. Third center, again, clearing is the same kind of idea, except for the middle. So the middle, suppose there was one here. I'm going to do that. Suppose there was one here. If you moved like this, now it's on the back, so you can't actually get it. So for this one, don't bother taking stuff out, just move. And then you can bring stuff in if there is any, and then move it. But if you take stuff out, it's just going to be brought over to the wrong area later, if that makes sense. So you clear it, and then you do the front, do the other side, and again, you can't do this middle layer. So all you can do is like that here. And then you have to rotate this by 90 degrees to get these two. And actually, because of the side effects of this type of 4-move commutator, we got some that moved over here, which is normal. You're going to see a lot of that. So now we do a center swap. These are here. And that's that. We've got the third center. Fourth center, pretty much the same idea, but there's one caveat, which is, again, the middle column. Kind of a theme here. Oops, I forgot to actually finish that. So for the middle column, you still move stuff out of the way, but instead of doing RU to R prime, you do M prime U M prime. M prime U M. So bring one in, do that, and then undo it. And you're never going to get that middle layer, the middlemost center, because that can't move. But that's good. We solved that one. Then the fourth one, those two, and the fifth one. Right? And then fix those, fix the center swap, and you're done with the fourth center. Fifth center, same idea, except for the middle one. So you bring it down, do that. Second one, that one's correct. That one's correct. Second one, you have to do M prime U M. Then you do it, and then instead of the thing you were doing like a trigger, it's M prime U prime M U M prime U M. So you're just like, you have to undo it, and then you do a U and redo it. But here we've actually solved this one, so you bring it back, and we're good. Then you bring down the next one. So, it's a little more annoying to do the odd centers. It's not that bad, but it is still bad. I mean, to do odd cubes. And here we've done all three. Undo it, do a U2. The reason we do a U2 is because U2 will always bring this layer completely out of the way. So we always get a completely new layer. Whereas if you did like a U, there's still one piece that you might bring down. And like you really want to make sure you don't have to think as much. So it's better like do a double turn to make sure that it's going to work rather than like hope it's going to work. But anyway, that's the basic method for even and odd cubes. And now I want to go over some variations and some other ideas. Now Soup has this method where he solves everything except for the 3x3. And then he'll do the centers, and then he'll solve the 3x3. And one good thing about that is that at least on even cubes, this doesn't really work on odd cubes, but at least on even cubes, this stuff basically leaves the 3x3 intact. So the idea is that if you leave the 3x3 till the end, then you don't have to worry about undoing these things. You can just do them willy-nilly, in any order, in any direction, and just fix it later. I understand it's kind of nice. The unfortunate thing is that each one of these actually does a PLL parity. So even if you didn't have PLL parity at the beginning, you might have it again, and you just have to do the alg. Okay, that's fine. He also used to have a method where he wouldn't solve the edges at all. He would do only the centers first using this method, and then at the end he'd solve the edges with like free slice or whatever, whatever your favorite n by n edges method is. I think that also like it's hard to tell if that loses time or gains time, but it's an idea. It's something to experiment with, and a lot of this stuff like it's so dependent on how good you are at it that it's really hard to tell if like I might gain or lose a minute or two over like a 20-minute solve, and I can gain or lose that just based on how I feel that day. So it's really hard to tell what method's actually fastest. And the one I do is the one I'm used to, but some slight variance might improve it, and it's hard to tell. One variant that I've thought about is called full clearing, or that's what I call it. So let's move to the center one. So this is a simulator that only scrambles centers. So full clearing, the idea is, and I'll load a solve I made already. Never mind, I guess. Alright, so the first center is the same, because I think that one is about as fast as it can be done. But after that, we're going to do things that are basically like what we do for the third center. No, for the fourth center. Alright, let's redo. So the first center can be done this way. I don't think it's a good idea, but you can. So the idea is that instead of clearing everything from these four, you do like the fourth center and you just remove every white piece, no matter what. So that means you don't have to do the commutators later. So like let's say we're going to do the first one, right? So you bring it down, solve whatever pieces you can. Oh, you got pieces left over. So instead of just going to the next one, now you do a 90 degree and bring it down again. And so the idea is that no matter what, you're going to get rid of all the white pieces. So that's like the second one. You can tell by rotating around. So no matter what, you just solve everything. And if you make a mistake, you just go back. So it's just one layer at a time. You solve everything that you can. You move every center out of this belt of the middle four. I don't know how that one got here, but okay. And then all the centers that are left are on the bottom. So you just do a center swap and do your commutators. Whoopsie. And then center swap. For the second center, this is like the most reasonable one of them. Because now all the yellows are in this belt of 4. So it's the same thing as the first center, and it's sort of the same as like normally do like RU to R prime, except that now you are really going to take all the centers out of the middle layers and do the entire center at once, which is kind of cool. So we've done the first column, the second column, and you kind of have to like keep track of what you've done and what you haven't done. Like, are there pieces left in this column or not? But if you can get a handle on that, it's like probably not that bad. That's like one of the things with like really big cubes, you kind of can't remember anything at all because they're just so big. There's like too much data to remember. So that would be a weakness of this style, that you would just have to look at every point. Or you could just try, like, since there's only 4 things to try for each column, you could just try all 4 every time, and that would work fine. You wouldn't be able to optimize it much, but like, you would certainly get every piece. So it's something to try. But anyway, that's that. We've solved the entire second center with no commutators, no weird stuff. Like, that's kind of cool, That's one reason I think like this method might have potential, but it's hard to tell. So then you can fix your edges, and now this is the weird one. The third center, you bring it up to the top, and then you're going to take things from the belt of the middle 3. So again, we solved the center all in one shot. The annoying thing is now we've got this center that's sort of like sitting there, and every row of this is going to be like an obstacle. So you move stuff out of the way, you do the first one, you bring stuff over. So you see what's going on here? Like, these are just getting in the way. And whenever we have one that's in the way, you just have to keep moving it. So you just keep track, like, if it's yellow, don't worry about it. And if it's orange, then you want to solve it. So this one is kind of awkward. And I've done some timings, and like, it's not that bad. Like, it doesn't waste that much time compared to the regular method. So that's why I feel it has potential. It's like, it's reasonable. And maybe if I was really good at it, or I found some more optimizations, it would be comparable to the normal method. But, it's hard to tell. But it is kind of cool to just be able to solve the entire center at once, no commutators or anything. Like, that's the attraction of this idea. Okay, so that's orange. I mean, that's third center. Then you just fix the center, undo the swap, and then you can proceed as normal. The fourth center is the same, and you swap some, you do the thing, and that's it. And the last 2 centers is pretty much like you can't do anything like this with the last 2 centers. However, that said, I did have another idea for the last 2 centers, so I'm gonna solve the 4th center, and then I'm gonna just show that off quickly. So I'll swap these 2, and then do the thing. And again, 8x8 is like a pretty small puzzle. Normally for this method, you'd be using a much larger one, but this is just like a demonstration. Because if you're any good at reduction, you should be able to improve, you should be able to solve a cube like this faster with reduction than with this method. If you're not good at reduction, then you could try it anyway. It's not that bad. So for the last two centers, there's one other idea I had, which was basically every time you move stuff over, if you see, so red is bad here, but if you move one over and you see a red, then you should undo that and wait. So here they're all fine, right? So we got some green, we're moving back. Second one, so we do this. Oh, look at that. These are red. These two and this one. So undo that. Now take the next one. And now go back and bring them in again. So the idea is that you never have to do that trick at the end where I do like RU2, R prime, E2, RU2, R prime, like that whole thing, because you're always going to find the correct piece on the top. It's just there's like a weird thing where you're like moving things in, moving them out. So like here we're moving that, but we're solving this. And you might have to do a couple more like moves than normal, but that was weird actually. So here, oh yeah, so I'm sorry, I did that backwards. So when you're moving this in, you don't want the green. You don't want to see the green because that might be the last green. You want to see the red, right? So you do this. Now we see red, these are fine. And then we find the green, which was where we had it the whole time. Let me just do it like this. So these two, that's green, no good. Don't take that one, but take this one. Then we do that. We can solve this one, but there's also still this one. Red, so that's fine. We do that until we find the green. So yeah, this is just like an idea. It's not really like fully fleshed out, but I think it's interesting. I think it's potentially fast. I don't know. But that's that idea. And I also want to go into some last three edges stuff. So let's scramble the normal one a bit. Let's take a little bigger, like 10 by 10. So basically the last three edges are like the place where things fall apart a bit. And the main problem is that like there's not enough room anymore. So like a lot of this method, the reason the edges feel decent for me is that there's a lot of room, and so you know what's solved at every point, you know what isn't solved, and you have plenty of room to move stuff around in the M layer. So it feels good, it's like you're not limited by anything. You don't care about centers, you don't care, you can do a U-turn, like all you have to do is just find all the pieces that are the right color pair and just plop them into place, which is pretty cool. And even on the up to the 8th center, it's not that bad. The 9th center, it gets annoying. So I'm going to discuss like some ideas for what's going on. I just have to get there. Okay. So for the last three, I think the 9th one is like pretty solid. If you see any flipped edges, like let's say it was like this, if you see flipped edges, you want to unflip them. Like, that's fair. You know, you bring them out of the way, you can flip this edge, you can bring them back. And then I think it's reasonable, like there's a 4-move insert for the remaining pieces. Like these, it's just an insert like that. U2 insert, this one, same thing. Like, that's reasonable. The last two are kind of annoying. And I don't really know what's the best way. So, like, what I normally think is, like, I want to either put them... There's, like, two approaches, right? You either take pieces that are wrong out, rotate the other edge, and bring them back in. Or you bring pieces in here, rotate this edge, and then bring them out. So what I mean is, like, here we have these pieces. So suppose I want to bring them in. I could do like this, move a couple layers over, flip this, move a couple layers back. And then there's still a bad one here. I'll move that over, flip it, and move it back. So that's reasonable. And let me just sort of scramble these a bit. Okay. Another approach is I want to take pieces that are in here, put them in here, and hopefully get second edge pieces back. So like I want to put, ideally, like, I guess each half by itself. So because if we have two of the same piece that are across from each other, you can't affect both of them at once by move, flip, unmove. Because you'll just move them both, flip them, and swap them, and move them back. So you do one half of the piece of the edge at a time. So you move these two in, flip this, move them back. Oh, we got one back. What that means is that it's this one and then the opposite. So like this one, not across, but opposite. You know, like that. So then if you see that, then you flip this, and then just do it again. Move this in, flip, move it back. So you've done the right, now you do the left, move it in, flip, move it back. And remember, like, you could probably see what's going on here, but on a really big cube, you wouldn't be able to see. You're just doing, like, 100 pieces at once. So you don't have the luxury of, like, oh, like, let's see where this other piece is. Like, you don't know. You can't count it. It's just somewhere. But there's a limited number of places it can be. So that's the idea, that we want to handle every possible case all at once. So we put this in. We put this half of the pieces in, flipped it. Some came back. So now you flip this one again, put it in again, flip it, and now nothing came back, so we're clean. And so as long as you've sort of sorted the last two, then it's really easy. Then you're almost done. Just move the flipped edge, move the flip pieces over, flip this one, and then do parity. So I guess those are like the main two approaches. And if anybody has any better ideas, I'd be interested. But like, there's really not that much you can do because you have almost no freedom left. And you really don't want to be like finding pieces and trying to figure out like what's where. All right, I have one final interesting idea, which is, let's talk about like the second center on a 9x9, let's say, on an odd cube. So here's an odd cube. Scramble it. So the first center, if you remember, like, isn't bad. I'll just solve the first center, but like on an odd cube, like, you really don't notice it that much, except for like the center swapping. That's really the only thing that an odd center affects. But then the second center is the worst for odd centers. The third center is not great. The fourth center is back to normal, and the fifth center is back to normal. So it's really the second and third centers that are the problem. And so here's sort of an idea for what to do about that second center. So the base idea is that if you remember, like, the horizontally middle layers are the bad ones. So we want to get rid of those. Like, we don't want any centers on those horizontal layers. And so the way we're going to do that is actually the same as the clear everything approach, because that actually works decently. So all we're going to do is clear everything in the middle layer, in the middle column. So let me go over this, I guess. So we've solved the first center. We're going to do clearing, and everything except for the middle is normal. You know, just one stage. You just do what you can and move on. But once we get to the middle one, we want to remove every yellow piece from this column on all four. And remember, we can't do m prime u2m. We have to do like m prime um or something. And then do a u. Anyway, so now we've removed all the yellows from the middle. And now you want to remember where you were, which was, I think, like this. Right. And then keep going with the single standard easy clear on each column. So just that middle layer is special. But what that middle layer means is that now none of these vertical layers in the ring have yellow pieces. Okay. Why is that special? So suppose we swap like this. Now, here we know the vertical one doesn't have any yellows. So if we do a 90-degree turn, now the horizontal one doesn't. And now we're safe. So now all the pieces we're solving are off that horizontal. Or let's say we're on here. This vertical one doesn't have any. So you do a 90-degree turn, now none of them are in this middle horizontal row. That's really convenient. And the bigger the cube is, the more annoying that could be. You just have to remember like where you were, right? So you want to undo things to the correct place. Or so now take the top, right? So we're going to swap to the top. The middle layer here, the layer that was vertical, is now. Well, I actually don't remember. So we swapped it like this. This layer does not have any. We do like that. Okay, so I think it's like this. I think it's like parallel to this. But the idea is that since it's parallel, well, one of these layers doesn't have any. This is a small cube, and when you have smaller cubes, like you often can skip tiny steps. But the bigger the cube is, the more you have to do every step, because you will have a center in every possible configuration. So the thing is that when you're swapping centers, if you can ignore the middle layer, you can save that whole middle layer stuff. So like you ignore the middle layer, you just swap these, and then you rotate. And so now you don't have to worry about this horizontal layer, you could just solve the top and bottom. Anyway, I'm sorry if this is a little like hard to understand. But I haven't really I haven't scripted this or whatever, I'm just sort of trying to explain my thoughts. I don't remember what position this was in. Let's hope it was like this. Yeah, I think that's correct. So maybe not. Sorry. I have an orange here. Alright, I think that's correct-ish. Well, the point is, we were able to ignore like a whole middle layer because of this. And then the same on here. Remember, this vertical one is fine, so we just do a 90-degree turn, swap it over, solve these edges, solve these centers, and swap it back. And then undo the 90-degree turn you did. And so, I know I messed this stuff up, but the point is that you were able to avoid all the, you were able to avoid some of the weird, oh no, the centers are on the wrong area, I have to do a 90-degree turn, by doing a specific series of 90-degree turns in the right places, which then prevented you from ever having to worry about those middle layers because you knew there was nothing on them. So, I haven't, really done this method much, but I think it's an interesting idea. I think it might make the second center a bit better. So sadly, I have messed up the middles. If you do this normally, you're not screwed, but you're gonna have to do some 3x3 stuff basically to fix the edges and corners and middle edges. So it's really annoying. It's probably not worth doing unless you're doing a no reset or something. You just have to be careful, basically. Again, remember to always do u m prime m, and then m prime u m prime m u prime, or whatever. So it's a sexy move kind of thing. It's imagine you're doing that inverse sexy, and then you're doing a sexy. It's just on the middle layer instead of on the outer layer. Also, when you are swapping centers, if you unswap the outer layers, that will fix them, which is a little easier to follow probably because now this edge is completely correct, this edge is completely correct. So that's probably a little easier to follow sometimes. And that less stuff is messed up. So it's probably easier to know what you did. Oops. You see I filled it anyway. How did this get here? I don't really know what I've done here. Alright, let's go over this again. So, oh yeah, right. I know what I did. When you do the outer parts. Wait, right. So remember, there's two steps, right? The outer parts and the middle layer. If you're doing this, if you're going to swap these outer things back, do it first, right? Do it like this, and then do the middle layer. Because then only the middle edges will be wrong. But this edge completely, except for this middle edge, and this edge will be right. And the same on the other side. So then when you undo it, it's the same kind of thing. You just fix the outer layers separately. So that takes a couple extra moves, but it's probably easier to follow if you're doing a lot of center swaps. And then it's easier to know, alright, what have I done wrong? And if you do a bunch of M layer stuff and forget where you are and then solve it, the worst case is you're going to have a bunch of M layer stuff. You're going to have a bunch of middle edges, which it's annoying to see something like this, but you can do it with commutators, edge commutators, blindfold stuff. It's annoying, but it's not that bad. It's stuff you can do, and it's a lot easier than just restarting, even though it's a little slower. A perfect solve you would never mess up, right? But you're gonna mess up sometimes, especially when you're learning. And so it's better to just have a backup plan. And the backup plan is, get everything back to normal except for the middle edges, and then solve the middle edges. So the absolute worst case would be if you mess a bunch of stuff up, and who knows what happened. It's gonna look something like this. And it's oh boy, I messed everything up. The centers are fine, but everything else is bad. So just solve the 3x3, relax, solve the 3x3. And then do the middle edges. So I'm just going to solve the 3x3 just as an example. like this kind of thing is really ugly and you don't want to have to do it, but it's a lot better than restarting if you're like hours into the solve. So then you have something like this and you can just be like, all right, this isn't great, but I at least know how to do a bunch of things here. I'm not like completely concentrating on the commutators, but it's not that hard. Like you can feel your way through it, and maybe it takes you an extra 5 minutes or something to figure it out. But it's a lot better than restarting if you're like, if you're doing like a 65 by 65 or something huge, and you spent hours solving centers already, like you don't want to restart. So, at least that's something that you can do the 3x3 thing. But yeah, I think that's pretty much it. There's a lot of like small optimizations and tricks that you can notice by watching people, watch like a 20 by 20 solve or something, for half an hour or an hour. Like it's not that bad. And you can sort of get a sense of what people are actually doing in solves. How people are rotating back and forth, that kind of thing. So yeah, hopefully that has explained some stuff, or at least I could get some ideas out without having to write them out. So yeah, happy solving and good luck.